An administrator told me recently, quote, most of my day is spent managing misunderstandings, miscommunications before they turn into full conflicts. How true is that? That sentence has stayed with me because it captures exactly what school leaders across the country are living every day. Not major blow-ups, mind you, but, not dramatic confrontations either. Just a steady stream of small communication gaps that grow into bigger and bigger and bigger challenges if we don't step in. And that is the heart of the parent divide. Expectations are shifting. Stress is higher. Patience is lower. And the margin for error is smaller than ever. So today, we're digging into why this divide feels wider than before and what administrators can do to strengthen relationships with families before they escalate. Welcome back, everyone. This is Interventions and Detentions, and I'm glad you're here, and I am Brad, and this is episode 215, season 2, episode 15. I can't believe we're at 15 already. It's crazy. Remember, this is where the real learning begins, and today we're talking about something every administrator has felt, whether you've been in the game for 20 years or 20 minutes. The changing landscape of parent-school relationships is the focus for today. And here's the thing. We're not here to bash parents. I'm not here to do that. I love my parents. I'm very fortunate to be in a school system and community where I feel very supported by parents. Even if we don't always see eye to eye on things, we come to an understanding and an agreement and in a respectful way. So it's great. We're not here to bash teachers today either. Luckily, I've got a very strong, supportive staff. We work well together. We're a good family. And, families don't always see eye to eye on things either, but we get it done at the end of the day. What we're doing today is we're going to talk about the real daily challenges that come with leading a school in the year 2025, almost 26. This episode's about understanding the forces behind the divide and exploring what we can actually do to bridge the gap. When people use the phrase the parent divide, it can sound dramatic, like we're describing two armies on opposite sides of a battlefield, but that's not what's happening in schools, and it's not what's happening here. The divide is much more subtle, something that we don't always see, and honestly, it's mostly made up of perception versus reality. Parents often feel like schools are not communicating enough or not clearly enough. I know that is something that happens all the time. I don't feel like we can ever communicate enough or clear enough with our parents, no matter how hard we try. I mean, it's never enough, and that's okay. We just have to get better and better at it. They're juggling things like work, kids, sports, finances, in a world that feels like it's constantly changing. I get that. We most people listening to this are working family people. We're all struggling with those things. And then it just makes school feel like another layer of stress, unfortunately. And I hope parents understand that's not what schools are intending to do. That's not our goal. On the flip side, administrators and teachers are seeing expectations skyrocket. Okay, and not trying to make excuses, but we're under a lot of pressure too. Parents want faster responses. They want more access. They want transparency, more customization, and as far as their learning for their children goes. While we're also trying to manage things like discipline here at the school, instruction, staffing shortages, and every operational issue that you can think of. So the divide actually looks like this. Parents who want to feel informed and involved, and educators who want to feel trusted and supported. Neither side is wrong, but they're often not operating from the same understanding of constraints or the same communication bandwidth, if you will. And when those two worlds collide, misunderstandings can grow fast. So let's think about what used to work but doesn't work anymore. Let's be honest. School communication 20 years ago looks nothing like school communication does today. There was a time when parents expected a newsletter, from their classroom teacher, probably weekly, maybe monthly from the school, or even quarterly, maybe a phone message, maybe a paper sent home in a backpack, and that was enough. Simpler times, mind you. Now, families want real-time updates, digital gradebooks, instant responses and feedback, social media communication, full disclosure and transparency on decisions that are being made, immediate access to staff, and support that feels individualized to their every need. And they're not wrong for wanting those things. It's just hard for schools to give them all those things. Here's the problem. Schools were never designed to operate like 24/7 customer service center. It'd be nice if we had somebody on call all the time that could answer parents' questions and concerns, but we don't have that. But sometimes it feels like the expectation has shifted into that direction. What used to work, like one direction communication or waiting for parent-teacher conferences, doesn't meet families where they are anymore. But at the same time, I feel like schools aren't resourced to operate at the speed parents are wanting or expect. So we're stuck in that modern mismatch where both sides feel like the other is failing them. And that can cause some tension. And it's not even intentional tension. I like that word, that phrase, intentional tension. That's not what we're after. I think there are three big drivers behind that parent divide, and the administrators feel them every single day. Well, let's look at the first one, communication overload. We're sending emails, using apps, posting on social media, pushing out mass messages, updating websites as much as we can to keep that communication and transparency there for our parents. Parents are receiving that communication from schools and then also their sports teams, but also their employers, maybe their doctors, and every other part of their lives. We get mass communication all day long. The more communication that we push out, the less of it truly gets absorbed sometimes. And that's not, again, it's not a fault, it's not a bashing, it's just the fact of the communication game. We also have emotional investment. Parents are wired to be more protective than ever before. School is where their child spends most of their day, most of their time. And if something feels unclear or misunderstood, parents try to fill in the blanks on their own, and usually with fear, worry, or even frustration sometimes. And then administrators absorb all that emotion coming from the parents. And that's not a criticism again, it's just human nature. There's also societal stress. Everything today feels more urgent, in the now, in the right now, whether it's economically, socially, politically. When that stress rises outside of the school, it inevitably spills back inside and it causes that tension. So then the tension that parents bring to schools is often not about the school itself at all, not even about the school. It's about life outside of the school. And schools happen to be the most accessible place to express that stress. I've seen it millions of times. Well, maybe not millions. Let's say hundreds of times. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The result is misunderstandings and reactivity. So what happens when expectations don't match and communication feels unclear? Misunderstandings, and there's lots of them that happens between school and families. A parent might read an email quickly and misinterpret the tone. I've been guilty as an administrator of sending out an email with what I think is a very good and positive tone, but however, it's been read into a whole different way by a parent or even a staff member sometimes. And you miss totally the message that was intended for that audience. A teacher might respond short and sweet because they're busy, and the parent hears it as them being dismissed or the message being dismissive from the teacher. A small behavior incident becomes a bigger issue because information travels faster than the context of the conversation. Administrators can end up in the middle sometimes, spending hours just untangling something that started out as a 2-minute mix-up. I've been in that situation before, spending a lot of time detangling something that really shouldn't have been a big deal at all. And maybe to one side or the other, it really wasn't. But because of the, misinterpretation, miscommunication, it turns into a big snowball effect. None of this means parents are unreasonable. Parents are not unreasonable for the most part. Every once in a while, maybe they go over the top and overreact and become a little bit on the unreasonable side. But that's okay. That's human nature. We all are guilty of that, right? I know I am, and it's okay. None of this means that teachers aren't doing their best either. I feel like all of our teachers that I'm associated with are working their tails off, busting their behinds to do what's best for our kid. I don't have any teacher, and I don't know any teacher that intentionally tries to do something ill towards a child or instructionally or things like that. Now, sometimes they might not know what they're doing and need a little support or PD, professional development, guidance, whatever you want to call it. But teachers don't wake up in the morning thinking, let's see what I can do to not instruct children today. That's not what happens, and that's not our goal. We have one thing in mind, doing what is best for our kids every single day. So when I think about this, it just means that the system is running at full capacity and there's very little room for nuance. Let's shift gears because this part really, really matters to me. For all the challenging communication that we experience, there's another side that does not get talked about enough. Supportive, collaborative parent engagement. Because like I said, we're not bashing parents today. We're not bashing teachers. We're just talking about concerns that come up in a building sometimes. But we also have some very positive, collaborative engagement with parents. And again, I'm very thankful that I feel like we've got more of that than the divide in this building, okay? Just because we're talking about the divide, that's not what's happening in this building on a day-to-day basis. I feel like we're getting the supportive, collaborative parent engagement, which is great. It helps the school thrive, helps our teachers thrive, helps our students thrive. It makes it a great place to be every single day. These are the parents who send, those quick messages saying, hey, thanks for helping my kid today. It's the parents who show up to volunteer at our kinder forest or just in the lunchroom, or to have lunch with a kid, not to supervise instruction, to come in and be like a watchdog. They're here to genuinely support the school and the school community. It's the parents who ask questions with curiosity, not acquisition, not accusing, I guess maybe is the better way to put that. The parents who say, I know you're juggling a lot. How can I help partner on this? How can I support you, teacher, you, Mr. Taggart, you, school? How can I help? These families are everywhere. They exist in every school community, but they're often quiet, but they're there. And when schools intentionally nurture those families, they become culture builders. And supportive engagement in a school is things like this. It's open communication without assumptions. It's willingness to listen, both sides. It's trust in the professional judgment of our educators. That one's really important. It's collaboration when challenges arise, not accusation, but collaboration. Talking it out, listening. It's shared commitment to the student, both parent and school wanting what's best for the student. And what's the key? The key is that those families don't appear by accident. They grow when the school provides clarity, consistency, and meaningful opportunities for partnership. So what can we actually do as leaders? Not theoretically, not like, I wonder about this, or what if we did this, but I'm talking practically. What can we do to shrink that divide between parents and school leaders and schools? Well, obviously, one thing we talked about is over-communicate. But you've got to do that with clarity, not volume. It's not the loudest voice that can be heard, it's the clearest voice. We've got to be clear, concise in our communication. Parents don't need more information, they need clearer information. They need to be crystal clear. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to explain processes before they become problems. We need to make that communication two-way, not one-way. We don't want to just be heard. We want to listen as well. We need to ask for feedback. We need to invite questions. We need to Show parents that their voice matters, that they are being heard. We are listening to them, even if we don't always do the things that they want us to do, because that can't always happen. At some point, decisions are made and not everybody is going to love them. Not everybody is going to like them. Not everybody is going to be feeling validated that their voice was heard because we have to go a different direction. But again, we at least have to show them that their voice matters. We have to give them a voice. If we silence them, what is that saying? We also have to set boundaries so that communication stays healthy. Set some maybe non-negotiables, set some ground rules, and both sides accept that, and we come to a better understanding when it comes to our communication. We have to normalize transparency. Transparency is a word that we hear a lot in education today. I'm hearing it a lot in our own community. Parents want schools, school leaders, teachers, school boards, superintendents to be transparent without overexposure. They don't need us to know everything as an administrator does, or what administrators do behind the scenes. They don't need to know all of that. But they do need insight on the why. I think the why is really important. And I think the why is another phrase that gets thrown around a lot in education. A lot of times we ask teachers, tell us what your why is. We're not talking about that. Parents want to know why we're making the decisions that we're making. They don't want to just know the decision. They want to know a little bit more behind it so they can understand it. That's really what it comes down to. They want that transparency. They want just some explanation of why are you doing this? Why did you make this decision? And I think a lot of times, even though they might not agree with it, they'll at least accept it a little bit easier, a little bit better when they have that understanding and that why behind the decisions. And it's easy for schools and administrators to oversee that or not overstep that part of the process, not providing the why. Why do we want your kids to be dressed in layers for winter weather? Because we are going to go outside even when it gets down to 0 degrees, and we want your children to be safe and warm when they're outside. Just explain the why behind what we're doing, and I think parents will have a better acceptance and understanding of that. They need insight into the why behind those decisions. We need to model emotional regulation. I'm pretty sure I've hit this in another episode called The Adults in the Room. If we are not emotionally regulated, how would we expect our parents or community to be regulated as well? When we're calm, parents will be calm. If we escalate, guess what? They're going to escalate. Just like I tell teachers, if you escalate, your kids are going to escalate. If your kids are escalated, you've got to be the bigger person and try not to let them escalate you, because you are not going to win that battle. You are not going to solve that problem. It's going to explode. So we have to remain calm, de-escalated, so that the situation doesn't escalate. Leadership is emotional temperature setting all the time. And it's hard. There's times that, I get upset or frustrated over certain things or certain situations, and I want to explode, but I cannot do that. I can't do that to my kids. I can't do that to my teachers, and definitely can't do it to my parents. We have to stay calm so that everyone else involved is calm as well. Emotional regulation. Celebrate partnerships publicly with your parents. When you collaborate well with parents, highlight it. Throw it out on social media. Put it in a newsletter. Like, I really appreciate the work that our parents and teachers are doing together, whether it's a certain project or just something that happened in the school. Maybe it's parent-teacher conferences. Hey, we had 99% participation. That's awesome, parents. Let's hit 100% next time. Celebrate it, shout it out, name it, call it out. Show your community what positive engagement looks like. Share pictures on social media. Put it in the paper. Yep, people still do read newspapers, your local newspapers. Send it out to them. The worst they can do is not run it, right? Get it out there. Newsletters, social media, any avenue that you can do. Even Power School messages. I use that a lot. Used it today. Get the word out. Show your community what that positive engagement looks like, and it reinforces the behaviors that you want to see more of in your school and from your parents. That's a lot of hard work. It's one of those extra layers that we as administrators sometimes tend to forget and need to keep on the forefront so that we can keep those positive relations and keep that divide smaller than what it needs to be. So when we talk about the parent divide, it can feel heavy, but here's what I always remind myself. Most parents want the same things that schools want, right? We want our kids to feel safe. We want them to feel supported. We want them to be successful. I think we would all agree on those two things, from the school side to the parent side. The divide closes when we assume that positive intent from both sides again. And we want that divide to be small, if not closed all the way. I feel like there's always going to be some division and divide there between parents and schools, and not every parent, but you're always going to have some, unfortunately. And that's okay, but if we can keep that divide small and closed as much as we can, I think your school culture and climate is going to be much more positive. And that divide can close when we create time for real conversations, not just reactive ones. We need to be authentic. We need to be transparent. We need to be genuine with each other. It closes when we build trust in small, consistent ways, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That will help build that trust and close. This work is not easy. It's meaningful. It's never easy. And it's part of what makes school leadership so important right now and why we need good leaders. We need leaders that can step up to the plate, but also not just, what do I want to say, like bull in a china shop kind of thing. We need people who can listen. We need people that are authentic, genuine, strong, communicative leaders. That's what's so important right now for schools and communities. And we need parents the same way. So parents, if you're listening, this isn't an episode just for the school leaders. It's for parents too. We don't want a divide. We want to be collaborative with you. We want a partnership. We want a community. When we talk about school community, it involves the school, the students, the staff, and the parents. We're a community. We're a family. So at the end of the day, let's work on closing that divide. Let's bring it together. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of Interventions and Detentions. If this episode has resonated with you, struck a chord, share it with another administrator, another family member, a parent, or an educator who could use the perspective. I appreciate, sharing these things. Reach out on social media, give me some idea topics, or maybe some suggestions, or maybe some things that are working to build strong parent school communities in your neck of the woods. And like I said, if you got a story or topic you want me to cover, send it my way. Looking ahead, we want to get some more guest episodes going. I've got some lined up. Looking ahead, I'm not going to give any teasers just yet. Just wait. It's coming up. So until next time, stay warm. If you're in the Northeast like I am, it's cold and snowy right now. This is your host, Brad, and this has been Interventions and Detentions, episode 215, season 2, episode 15, The Parent Divide. Don't forget to tune in every week. Check back for a new episode. And as always, this is where the real learning begins. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.